Hello and welcome. I'm Kendra Losee, and I am here with Talking with Trailblazers. I'm really excited about today's show, and we're going to be talking about how to ensure that growing your CBD business is in the cards. First of all, if you are watching this on YouTube or in the replay, don't forget to join us in the Women Empowered in Cannabis CBD group on Facebook. That's where we have these videos and a great community of women there who are all supporting each other in the CBD industry. But let's talk about our guest today. Today we have Kate Manson, and she has been in cannabis for many years and is the founder of Capsule and Tarot CBD. Her 11-year journey in the cannabis industry has allowed her to share her passion for cannabis and CBD with a myriad of audiences. Before pursuing her own brand, Kate served as the VP of experiential marketing, which I'm excited to talk about, at WikiLeaf, where she learned the intricacies of effective cannabis marketing. So let's welcome Kate. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. Now, there's a couple questions. I have so many questions. You guys, Kate is just a wealth of knowledge. But the first question I have for you is, how did you get started in cannabis? And then how did you come to launch your CBD brand? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you like the back story and then the future story. So I have my family has always been cannabis friendly since I was a very young age, and so I've had a relationship with cannabis for a very long time. And so in 2008, I was going to college and couldn't afford to take work off and continue to take classes. And I had a bunch of friends that were growing pot at that time medically, and I was just like, well, I can do this and I can take some time off from work to finish these classes to graduate from college. And so that's kind of where I really started to get into cannabis, was in a growing side. Fast forward a few years, I had done some time as a sports agent and working at Nordstrom Corporate in marketing, all while growing cannabis on the side, and had like this side life nobody knew about. And took the plunge and interviewed at WikiLeaf and got the job as the VP of marketing, and then became the VP of experiential marketing. And from there, it's just been history. So for the past, 4 or 5 years now, I've just been engrossed in cannabis and marketing and CBD and on the agency side.
What do you like most about being in the industry?
Honestly, what I love about being in this industry is that there's so much room for growth and that you're solving a problem every day. So what I found when I was working in corporate America was I was bored. I was like, I'm a cog. I could sit here and read a book at my desk all day, and like everything is still getting done. There's processes in place for everything, and I couldn't screw up. Like, you can't do anything. You don't really make a difference. And so for me, in cannabis, I'm like, yes, I have no clue what I'm doing every day. It's probably not going to work, or it is, like, fingers crossed, and let's just see. And so it's been just a huge growth opportunity, and it gets, your creative juices flowing in terms of marketing.
Absolutely. And just so everyone knows, what is Capsule and Tarot CBD?
Yeah. So Capsule was an agency that I launched when I was still at WikiLeaf. It started as a female-focused weekly newsletter where I would feature cannabis brands on an email marketing newsletter that I enjoyed, that I thought people should be aware of. And from there, a year after starting Capsule, I had collected over 50-something thousand emails between giveaways and working with partners, and had taken on a couple of marketing clients, and decided to leave WikiLeaf full-time and focus on Capsule. So Capsule was and is still an active agency. I take on small projects just in the cannabis space, just helping with marketing now, mostly doing high-level strategy and just general consulting. But started to get really burnt out on client work and having multiple male bosses instead of being my own boss like I thought I was going to be. And started, thinking about the idea of launching my own business and my own brand outside of Capsule, at the same time as having some health issues. And so kind of came up with this idea for Tarot, which is my CBD line that focuses on blending full spectrum CBD with ancient herbs to help beat burnout and just fit perfectly into your modern day life. So I launched Tarot in November of 2019 and have been just fully engulfed in it for the past 3 or 4 months now. I'm like, when was November? And I've had really great success, but with success, I've also had, highs and lows of owning my own business.
Absolutely. I love that you launched the CBD line too. That's amazing, which gives you a whole concentrated value and knowledge to like speak from. Um, so one thing that really caught my eye when you were posting and we were talking a little bit is your experience with email marketing. Now, I know a lot of people in the group are using email marketing, but not everybody and not everyone's sold on it. So, can you talk a little bit about what you find makes a strong email marketing campaign?
Absolutely. So I think with email marketing, it's really about finding the content blend that people are excited to open. And so what I've found is, the 80-20 rule, like 80% is educational content and information, the 20% is sales. With Capsule, I got really lucky because I would feature, 4 or 5 different brands in a really lovely layout. Then I would take all of those brands to Instagram, to LinkedIn, tag them, send them a little email that said, hey, here's the amount of opens I got, here's the click-through rate I got on your brand, and through that was able to grow clients, but also grow this list of dedicated followers who are watching to see what was happening. So, it's really in email marketing too, it's about having a great call to action, so something that is always pointing somebody somewhere, and it's a concise message. It's not giving them 30 buttons to click, it's giving them 1 or 2 buttons to click that go somewhere, there's another action that they have to take. So you have a good solid pipeline. And then the other is actually advertising that you have a newsletter and that you're using email marketing to generate signups. So there's so many people that have email programs and send out emails but aren't doing anything to actually grow and capture. So really defining what it is that you want goals to capture, and then finding the actions. And just a couple of quick tidbits for finding actions, like group giveaways are great with landing pages to capture emails, using your Instagram stories to capture emails. So even just putting it out on your LinkedIn, like, let's stay in contact, reach out, find my newsletter. It's really, if you have a newsletter, that's great. Now you have to direct people to use it as well.
Absolutely. And there's a few things that I want to talk about when it comes to newsletters. I've been helping with clients with this as well. What's the number one rule of a newsletter in your mind?
Oh, I'm like, oh no, do you have a rule? Like, I don't know the rule. For me, it's testing, so making sure that everything is trackable on the newsletter so that I understand what's working and what isn't, and then taking the time to go back and look at all of those metrics. And even if I really like something, if nobody's clicking on it, it's got to go. Yeah. So really it's all about the tracking and it's all about the data.
I also think even, there's a couple of things that I've seen, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. And sorry, you guys, we didn't actually talk about some of these questions, but I know you're going to know the answer, so I'm not worried about it. Is when you're growing your list, can we talk about the opt-in for a second? Because the privacy rules continue to change. And there's GDPR, which is the European privacy laws that a lot of us adhere to, even though we're not necessarily doing work in Europe. But California just passed a privacy law as well when it comes to tracking and opt-ins and making sure that people have opted in. What are your thoughts? I see a lot, and so sorry, I'm getting to the question here. So I see a lot of people, and not just women, I see this happens all the time, is they go to an event, they collect cards, those cards go on their list.
Yep.
What are your thoughts around that?
I think that if you were going to send out personal emails, that's one thing. If you're going to send out email blasts with sales and promo information, that's completely different. And even as an email marketer, I get annoyed when I get spammed by people that I met at an event with an email blast instead of just a personalized email. So those are definitely 2 separate lists, segmented differently, different information, different conversation.
And thank you, because it's something that I feel very strongly about, and I also get annoyed with, but we had a conversation. Why am I suddenly on your list getting a spam email? But the other thing about this is that there are ways to opt those people in. Hey, we met. Here's my list. Would you be interested? Sending an opt-in email. But don't just add people because you shook their hand to your email list.
Exactly.
The information that might not be relevant. It might be a waste of your time. You might irritate them. There's a lot of things to watch out for. But that's something that I see a lot of people do. And like I said, not just this industry, not just women, it's kind of across the board. Um,
Yeah.
and you need to be really careful because people can report you and then you end up blacklisted. And as a cannabis or CBD business, you're already having problems.
Exactly. Well, I think
Um,
you've already got a personal connection with those people, so there's no reason to put them on your sales email newsletter blast. You can now just reach out to them directly. You can call them. Like you can actually be their friend and have a bigger relationship outside of your email newsletter blast.
Absolutely, which is something else that we were talking about as well is don't you mentioned this as you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting and that don't be afraid to ask. The worst that can happen is they say no. Can
Yep.
you provide a little context about that and what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So this is funny. I just posted on my LinkedIn a conversation around the same topic. So in marketing, especially in cannabis, we don't know who's going to say yes to our crazy ideas. So it's literally just constantly asking. And so a few years ago when I was at WikiLeaf, I was like, I'm going to put a cannabis commercial in the air. I was like, I'm going to be the first person that puts something that you see on the back of the TV that is cannabis related. I literally called every airline multiple times and talked to every single person. And at that point, I was just like, no, it's negotiable. I'm going to find the right person to talk to. And I did. And I finally started to work with Virgin Airlines. We launched a cannabis commercial in the air, but it's really just no is negotiable. Like, keep calling, keep asking. It's going to happen. If it's your idea and it's your dream, like, make it happen. Just don't stop after one no.
Great. That's great advice. I think a lot of people do that, and it's an easy thing to fall into because no can sometimes, people, you can take it personally. There's a lot around no as a word.
Yeah, well, I'm just like, I'm very stubborn, like I'm a Taurus, and that's just kind of like one of my key Taurus things is so like when somebody tells me no, I'm like, but wait a second, what if we like voice it like this or we change it like this and we kind of make them feel like it was more their idea or let them have, some intake on the idea. But I think in cannabis right now, like we're gonna get a lot of no's before we get yeses. So we better get used to it and then we better just keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So don't let no's stop you. Because there are ways around, and I think that it forces us to get more creative as well.
For sure.
And you might end up with something that was better than before you got the first no or the second no.
For sure.
So when the next thing I want to talk a little bit more about tarot CBD and about the mindset when it goes into, a lot of us are also our own worst enemies when it comes to mindset and when it comes to believing in ourselves, what we're creating, and being confident about it. Can you talk about what made you decide to launch your CBD line coming from marketing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very personal conversation. I was on a lot of prescription drugs for anxiety and depression and insomnia, and was taking Adderall every day to stay awake and Xanax to go to bed. And then being in the cannabis industry, you're constantly going to conferences, you're constantly going to parties. I was drinking too much. I was just treating myself like complete trash, to be totally frank. And I came home from MJ BizCon 2 years ago and was just like, I am making some serious life changes. Like, I can't continue to do this to my body. I can't continue to burn out. And so I stopped taking all of my prescription drugs and started bringing in all THC, CBD, herbs, and then as well as microdosing psilocybin mushrooms, but that's probably a bigger conversation for a different day. Really saw just amazing benefits from blending herbs with CBD and low doses of THC and wanted to bring that to the masses. And I started to create blends that I thought would help people instead of being, here's MCT and CBD oil
Right.
about your day. It's like, here's MCT mixed with valerian root. This is really great for sleep. Or here's MCT with elderberry and rose. This is really good for anxiety and boosting your immune system and helping with burnout. So really started to create more custom tailored products that people could pick and choose and use throughout the day.
Nice. And pardon?
I can't, like, did I answer your question? I can't.
No, you did. You did. I'm going to ask a part two. But you did. And thank you for sharing that. I'm also looking at, we are getting comments here. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Excuse me. Bianca is here watching, and she was saying that when she hears the word no, she keeps swimming, which I think is
nice.
awesome. Absolutely. And then
I love
also, Shifra, I believe, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, is saying thank you for sharing your knowledge and helping her grow her family brand. So thank you guys for watching. Um, so I want to go back to somewhere in there. Did you run into imposter syndrome or doubts in terms of, can I do this? What makes me somebody who can do this versus someone else or all the products that are already out there? I think there's a lot of doubts that come our way when we're looking at stepping into that new place. And so I want to talk to a little bit about that belief in yourself and why that's so important and how you found that and use that.
Absolutely. I mean, I have those mental arguments with myself once a week where I'm looking at somebody else's Instagram or I'm reading a feature on another brand and I'm just like, I'm not good enough. This is never going to work. Like, how do I continue? There's so many people. And really what it's come down to for me is I believe in what I'm doing so strongly that even if it doesn't become this multi-million-dollar business, which I don't think is my plan. Honestly, my plan is just to share a message and a passion for plants. Um, I'm still happy that I tried to do something and I'm trying to do something different. And so for me, that's like the real generator of growth is just being able to overcome my self-doubt every day because it's there. It's always there in the back of our mind, especially with like social digital age. And still continue to believe in my product, use it every day, and share the message with other people.
That's fantastic. That is great. And it's great. I mean, it's nice to hear that when people are doing this, there is, no one's 100% confident all the time. And if they were, they'd probably be super annoying, honestly. No one wants to be around them.
Yeah, I definitely have like love days and high days. Like last week, I think I was crying to my boyfriend for like 2 hours because I'm like, I just can't get everything done and nothing's working and this didn't work. And there's just like days where then I'll just walk away from my computer and I'm like, I'm gonna go do something else right now and take my mind off of it. And I think I went for a walk with my dogs and went to the grocery store and came back in just a better headspace too. So, that's always important is to like, instead of trying to force a positive headspace when you're in that space, change your scenery
Yeah,
and then come back to the problem later.
exactly. Exactly. It doesn't do any good to just sit in it for sure. Um, I believe it's Shifra here. Your name disappeared while I was looking at this. She's saying, she made the comment that she feels like many women get into this industry and it comes from a personal space and it makes these products more real, effective, and relatable. I totally agree. And one thing that I have to say, it really like I don't honestly, there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't personally want to work with people who are like drop shipping stuff from China and just in it for the money and don't have that belief in what it can do in the bigger picture of the industry overall.
Yeah. I've
Uh,
taken Tarot one step further, and I actually don't white label anything either. I produce everything myself by hand or have a production staff that does it. And so with our products, they're proprietary blends that you're not getting anywhere else. I don't have a problem with white labeling. It just wasn't
no.
for me. It wasn't for me with my product blends. I didn't trust anybody. So I'm actually overseeing or actually sitting down in our facility and creating products on Saturday and Sunday to ship out.
That's amazing. I want to step back. I don't have a problem with white labeling. I have a problem with the purpose being only money driven versus being only, being actually there to help and make a difference and all of the altruistic things that we all believe in about the plant.
For
Um,
sure.
because yeah, white labeling, fantastic option for a lot of people, but it's the purpose behind it that I think
Yeah.
is what I personally don't necessarily align with as much. Um, I want to go back to just how all these things work together. So you've created your project coming from a marketing background. You are making sure that you're pushing boundaries wherever you can to come up with creative solutions. And you're doing all of these marketing around your product and your brand. Like I said, I wanted to have you talk about email specifically, but given your experience, I don't want to just limit the conversation to email. Um, what do you think for your, and it's going to be different for every company, but what do you think is most effective at helping move the needle for your brand, from brand awareness to sales? Let me
Um,
put my,
so two things. One, I hired a PR firm because I'm not a PR person. It was an expense that I found necessary. So that has been incredibly helpful for finding opportunities with other publications and events that are not necessarily in the cannabis space, that are more in like the general beauty, health, wellness. And then the second thing is like leveraging other people's brands and partnering and creating collaborations. So like right now for March, I probably shouldn't talk about this yet, but I'm kicking off a campaign with 30 female founders, where we're defining what the fuck wellness is. Sorry for the F word, but that's the name of the
yeah,
campaign.
I love
And
it.
it's about defining what wellness is for real working women versus what we read in Allure or what we see on Refinery 29. This is like, how am I finding my piece of wellness as a founder of a startup on a limited budget with limited time?
Love it.
So it's really about, creating a community around your brand.
Love it. Love it. That's so important. And I think that that's often overlooked because there's a couple of things around that, right? One is PR is often overlooked because it sounds big and ominous and expensive.
Yeah.
You think of automatically, I don't know about you, but I think automatically of like the New York New York PR agencies when it doesn't have to be that way. And actually, just a plug for later, a video, we'll be talking to Heidi Groeschel about PR. So we'll be interviewing Heidi later in the end of March. So
Mm-hmm.
she'll be talking about PR as well then. But so one, PR is not as expensive as people tend to think it is. And it doesn't have to be this huge thing. I think that when you start looking at influencers and community, that can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you've managed to do a lot with that on your own, becoming the influencer and impacting the brands on your own as well.
I don't know if I'd call myself an influencer, but I'm like maybe. um, the PR conversation, like I vetted probably 6 or 7 different companies that gave me price range from like $10,000 to $1,500. I found somewhere that was like right for me. It really just takes a lot of digging. And when I say like I hired PR, I did not hire an agency. I hired one person who is a freelance PR
Right.
guru. And she is working very hard to build her own agency. So we kind of found each other right as we're in a growth stage. So it's working for me. But it's definitely like some of the what's the word I'm looking for right now? Proposals that I got, I was just like, I can't afford this. Like I went into this conversation telling you I don't have $10,000 to spend a month on this. So it's really just about finding who works well with you.
Absolutely. And I think that works across the board. One of the things that I think is interesting is that I've seen throughout my career, I've seen a lot of people who will try email marketing and then say, oh, that doesn't work because they didn't get what they were looking for out of it. And then they try social media and then they say, well, that takes too much time. I think that what I've seen is finding the combination that's going to work for your business. But to Kate's point earlier, you need to test it to figure out what that combination is, and it's never going to stay the same. What would you say is you mentioned the on-air in-flight commercial, which is amazing. I hadn't heard that. That's awesome. What else would you say was kind of the most unique um, marketing option that you've tried that you thought was a good fit for whatever
Uh,
the goal was that you were trying to accomplish?
so this is really funny. I found a workaround for the Facebook CBD landing page last June, around June 10th, and shared that with 2 of the largest CBD companies, one who is also a CEO of another large beauty company. And within a week, it was live on Facebook. So I'm like, did we have a conversation? Let's figure this out. So really excited. I'm glad that it's working. Help these clients get it there. Come November when I launch Tarot, Facebook has flagged me, shut me down, disabled all of my accounts. And I'm
No.
just like, wait a second. I'm like, I might have been the person that came up with this. And here we are, 2020. I can still see the clients' ads that keep popping up in my feed, and mine are just sitting in the dust.
No.
It's whatever. Yeah. So
So
happy that it's for some folks.
absolutely. We are going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, but I wanted to find out, what advice do you have for someone who might be looking to start their own CBD? There's going to be a two-part question. So the first part is, what advice do you have for someone who might be looking to start their own CBD brand and launch their company?
Okay. I guess don't be scared to look into a bunch of different options. Like look into white labeling, look into producing yourself, look into and understand like all of the costs associated with both business models there before you dive in. And then also don't be afraid to barter for services. And this is like kind of off topic from that question, but like all of my photography, I do all of her marketing. And so we switch. And so as a young startup business, like always have that in the back of your mind too, is like, who can support me in this? Who do I know, and how can I help them in return to get my business off the ground?
Oh yeah, I am in San Diego, and I am an avid. I was before I started my business and had to had to step back from it a little bit, but avid outrigger canoe paddler, and I 100% bought a paddle for my designer friend in exchange for a logo, two logos. Like, I will happily buy a $300 outrigger paddle for you if you are going to design my logo and everything.
I will do all of your email marketing for a year if you take all of my photography. Perfect. Let's do this.
Seriously. Exactly. Bianca just mentioned that she's an advertising jail on Instagram and Facebook. Oh, advertising jail.
I've been pitching this conversation to Forbes and a couple of different places because I really feel like we're in advertising jail because we don't have the budgets necessary.
It's totally true.
I'm really trying to work and advocate for small business owners right now to have Facebook have some accountability on who's allowed and who isn't. So stay tuned. Let's all just keep reporting, back to them, and just keep having, don't let them close the chat window on that. Just keep pushing their buttons constantly. We'll get there.
And there's enough people complaining about it. You would think they would start to move that needle a little bit. Yeah. But it's so frustrating for people, and it's not even always about being a risk taker, right? There's, like you said, there's a lot of different people doing the same things, and one person will get put in advertising jail, and the other one's perfectly fine for years.
Yeah, I honestly think it's relationship and budget based, and that, there's a saturation point that's happening. But anyways, I'm like, conspiracy theory on Facebook advertising over here.
While we're in the Facebook group, hi. Absolutely. Kate, I want to thank you very much for your time today and for taking this time. Your insights and experience are fantastic. Really enjoyed the conversation. If you guys have any questions for Kate or I, drop them in the comments below and tag us. And Kate, any last words before we go?
Just thank you so much for having me. And if anybody has questions or needs help with anything, like, I'd love to help and support other women in business. So please just shoot them my way. And I hope that we can do this again very soon.
Absolutely. And just the voice at the bottom while Kate's on the screen by herself. Her Tarot CBD, her Instagram accounts are on the screen. So if you guys have any questions or want to connect with her, she's in the group, but you can also reach her on Instagram as well. Thank you guys for joining us today. We'll be back in probably, I think, 2 weeks. I'll look at the schedule, but we'll be back soon with more interviews. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.